Welcome to Swish, vintage finds for your sassy self. We hope you enjoy the videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Hi, so here we are in very rainy Vancouver, and we are in front of this store called Lace Embrace. So she's got a custom corset business and a vintage lingerie museum, and we're just so excited to meet her in person. We've heard so much about her. Her name is Melanie Talkington, and we're going to head in there and you'll get to see all the stuff that we are privileged to see. So here we are inside this amazing store, and this is Melanie Talkington, and we are new to, well, I'm new to corset world, and but all that I've read and all that I've seen about you, I mean, this is a fellow Albertan too, originally. You're from Calgary?
Yeah, from Calgary, yep.
And she was flown to Paris to have some of her collection at the Louvre.
Yes.
So how did you start in this world of corsetry? And I mean, she makes corsets, she teaches corsetry, is that what it's called?
Yep.
As you can see, she's wearing this
so
beautiful corset. So maybe you want to tell us a little bit about how you started out in this world.
I was at the drive-in theater in Calgary. 7 or 8 years old, and was always allowed to watch the first movie, and then the second movie, my mother was quite insistent I go to sleep because they would play Pink Panther and all the fun stuff on there. And of course I was peeking over the seat, and the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas was playing, and there was all the women dancing around in the lingerie, and she was like, go to sleep, and I thought it was Dolly Parton. I couldn't see because she's like curvy and busty. I didn't realize the lingerie was anything because it was the 80s, and dancing, leotards, aerobics, all that was popular. And then I saw another movie with Dolly Parton, 95, and I was allowed to watch that one.
So you two are now bonded
Right?
even more, right?
Oh, you love Dolly
goddess.
too?
I love Dolly, yeah.
Yes, there's a picture of her somewhere. I don't know where she is.
Oh,
I did get
we'll
to meet
find
her. Yeah. And make her a corset. So
Really? What?
yeah, that was magical. So yes, so it's amazing when you get to meet your legend and thank them for inspiring you. So I was told Dolly Parton wore corsets, and I was like, what's a corset? It makes your waist smaller. Why do women used to wear them in the olden days to make their waist smaller? I'm like, but why? And nobody in my family could answer that question. And so it was always one of those unknown curiosity things, and I'm like, what's it like to wear a corset? What does a corset look like? So I finally, other than seeing pictures in books or movies, I finally got my first antique corset and took a pattern off of it because it was too fragile to wear, and then just started to like collect them and save them, because so many people, when you find a corset, you want to try it on, you want to experience what does that feel like, and the antique corsets are so fragile. It was important that I could preserve those and stop people from forever destroying a one-of-a-kind garment and take patterns off them. And people just started asking, and they're like, can I try one on? Can I? And then it just turned into a business.
But were you self-taught? Did you teach yourself how to do?
Well, I left Calgary because they canceled the fashion program.
Oh, they did that in Edmonton. Well, there was
Yeah.
a textile program in Edmonton at Grant MacEwan when I was in school, and they canceled that too.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I was going part-time and so excited to start my career in fashion, going full-time, and then they canceled the program the day before registration, and I was like, oh no, what do I do? So they said, come out to Kwantlen or go to Toronto and go to Ryerson, and my family was here, so I said, guess I'm moving to Vancouver. So I moved out here in 91, 92, and studied fashion and worked in the industry, and just kind of had my hobby business doing corsets and bridal and special occasion, and kind of built it up that way. And then I was doing all these corporate jobs as a buyer and a sourcing manager, and I was like, this is too much sitting at a computer and not enough creativity. And I finally just decided to go full-time. And so in 2002, I just went full-time with Lace Embrace. So we're having our 25th anniversary this year.
Wow, congratulations.
So,
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, so it's really exciting to see the travel, the journey that it's gone, and I've experienced way more than I would have ever imagined. So, like, I used to live at 12th and Main, and if somebody had told my past self that I would have a shop at 16th and Main, I would be like, what? No way.
Wow.
So, yeah, so we've been here 15 years in the store, and yeah, so lots of fun stuff. And then Paris was doing an exhibit on the history of underwear, the mechanics of underwear, and they needed Victorian and Edwardian corsets because in Paris they treasure everything 18th century and earlier because that's old to them. Victorian Edwardian is not very old to them and not precious, not royal, I think could be part of it. So they borrowed pieces from my collection. It was 40 pieces, bustles, corsets, bust bodices.
Do you have a panier?
So I don't have a panier, but I did get a lot of 18th century stays through COVID. So that was, yeah, that's been amazing. And I just got an amazing pink with silver embroidered, like silver braid work on the front, 18th century stays, and they were royal court stays from about 1730 to 1750. So I've been taking a pattern off them. And then we've are collaborating with John Fluvog shoes, and so I was modeling in their spring catalog, and I said, oh, it would be so lovely to like create a corset based off of your shoes. So they ordered the leather for me, and so we're making these stays. And then we're gonna do.
Natasha also worked for Fluvog for a while,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think
Yes.
you two are a bit kindred.
Exactly. Yeah, such a great company, and John Fluvog's like an amazing person. He's such a character. So yeah,
So cool.
yeah.
Wow.
So when I think of corsets, there is that exoticness to it. But who would you say is some of your what's sort of an average? Is there such a thing as an average client, or you get people probably from every walk of life?
Every walk of life. It's just like we're here, people are like, what's the store about? And so they come in, we try to give them an experience where you're kind of experiencing time travel in a way. We have dresses and vintage, and we have a museum, and we have our corsets. So we just want to try to allow people a comfortable space, so we're not like a lingerie store or a fetish store, but we do have fetish clients and trans and all of that community. But we also have medical. We do a lot of medical. We have a lot of brides. We have new moms. We have women going through menopause who just want their figure back. Perimenopause. So yeah, so it's just a nice. They're sexy back braces. They bring in your waistline. Give you the hourglass figure, make you stand up straight. So if you have any back pain, that's really what they do.
It's posture. When we're selling, when we have clients that come into the store and they talk about how small the clothing is, we'll say, of course, there's the change in eating habits. We eat much more than people ever did. My grandmother never ate chips in her life or had Starbucks, or they were much smaller. Plus, when you're wearing a corset or any sort of foundation garments, you're forced to stand up with nice posture. You can't be slumped or bloated or kind of that.
Well, if you had a poor posture in the Victorian or Edwardian era, you were lazy, and you were always perceived by your posture and by your fashion. And it's actually not true that they were smaller. It's the small clothes exist because nobody can fit into them, or the really big clothes exist. But all of the clothes that's wearable they just got worn out. So I have a bunch of French trade journals for the corset and lingerie industry, and the earliest one is from 1903, and they go up to the 1940s, and they came with tissue paper patterns for corsets and lingerie. I didn't even know they did tissue paper patterns in the Edwardian and Victorian era. They're so hard to find. So these patterns that I have are a 24-inch waist. So that's like a very average size corset, and this is from 1903. So they would give you the median size corset, and then you could grade it up and grade it down based off of that. So, and even if you look at the photos, you see the ones that are small, the corsets that get saved are because they were bridal They
Oh,
were
of course.
sentimental.
Yeah.
And then
Special.
soon after she's pregnant, and then she doesn't get back into her 18-inch waist. So the goal of a young lady would be to have a waist equal to her age in years, and to so that's why you'll see 18-inch, 20-inch, 22-inch. Well, not even 22 as
Does
much.
that mean
but
I should be 57-inch waist?
we hope not. But the matrons, like
Right.
after you have your children, the ideal woman in the Edwardian era was the matron, the mother of the household. She ran her household. She displayed her husband's wealth. And so that's why the clothing is like the big powder pigeon bust and the narrow waist and the big curving hips. But those are not, they look tiny because they've added front and back.
Right.
They've enhanced everything. So yeah.
The other thing we find, especially in Edmonton, maybe it's because it's a prairie, I'm not sure, but I can't tell you how many people have said, this one lady in particular was telling me about all the French corsets and silk and custom pieces that her grandmother had.
Wow.
And she said, oh, who wants that old junk? And threw it in the garbage. And
Yes.
we get so many
Yeah.
people that
Yeah.
would not ever consider that someone might be interested in underwear.
Yeah.
You know, they think
Yes.
of it as underwear,
Dirty.
so they think, and they
Yeah.
just throw it all in the garbage.
Yeah.
And that's such a heartbreaker. for
And
us
the
all
fact
time.
that underwear was saved, the bridal trousseau was saved, the bridal corset was saved, the stockings, the shoes, the wedding gowns, like all of those things do get saved and handed down because that was a very expensive garment in its time, and it was sentimental to the bride because that showed her at her smallest
Right.
and a prime of her life, and then she moves on, so she hopes that maybe her daughter can wear it in the future. So that's why these things get saved and passed down. And yeah, I have a 18th century stays, and they're just white cotton or ivory like cotton on the front, very plain with hip pads sewn on them, and they're boned with reed, so they're not expensive stays, but written in pencil across the front of these 18th century stays in French is like, do not destroy or touch these. They belong to my grandmother and they must be preserved as a relic. And then she wrote her grandmother's name and her name in 1860. So in 1860, she wrote on them to like preserve these and save these for the future.
Wow.
So it's quite an unusual, yeah.
Well, my eyes are just traveling all over to the magnificence of this store. I mean, I think that Natasha and I've talked in the past about doing, we have so many clients and customers that say, take us with you. And I mean, if we were to ever organize a vintage trip, this would be a definite, first stop, because this is like nothing. This is like, I'm new to travel in Europe, but I went all over the place in Florence and in Paris and stuff, and there's nothing like this that I've ever seen. I mean, this is spectacular. So having said that, we're going to have a little tour. We'll see if Melanie can show us some of her favorite pieces, or maybe Natasha will try a corset. And then we also have to have time. Melanie has prior commitments, and then Natasha and I can shop.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're ready.
So this part of the store, I'm assuming this is the museum.
It's one of the hidden gems in Vancouver because it opened right before everything went into lockdown. So nobody really knows that there's an antique corset museum here in the city in the back of our shop. So originally we were sewing corsets and lingerie back here, but we couldn't get any work done because everyone would come to visit. So we turned it into a museum and moved the studio.
Wow.
So there's lots of miniature mannequins and shop displays. So this is Babette. She's from the Paris flea market.
Oh,
And
wow.
on the same trip, there was a can dress hanging in the window of one of the vintage shops, and it was exquisite. And so I thought Babette needed a fun reproduction of that dress.
Wow. So you made that
So,
piece.
Yeah, I made her
Beautiful.
little dress to go on it. And the miniature shop displays, so they're miniature lingerie mannequins, because to have a full-size mannequin in the store takes up a lot of room. So they would do all these counter displays, and it's just remarkable the attention to detail in all of the garments. So with the stitching and stuff. So I actually just got this mannequin on a trip to Florida. And I always had
She
the
is beautiful.
the lingerie piece, and they fit perfectly.
Wow.
So this is Evlia, because that street I kept driving down, and this is Eve, and so she has her original garments on. It's just unusual blue lady. And
Wow.
then Leanne here is a Dior
Yes.
mannequin from Paris, so she's all
Wow.
plaster of Paris. Yeah, so it's all shop displays, advertising, things that would promote the corset and lingerie industry. So this is a biflex English girdle form, and then I found a biflex girdle as well, and that's a Lady Marlene with a Lady Marlene
Oh, I love that.
bustier on it. So yes, we have a variety of different things, and from around the world. It's really nice to have varieties. This is a Warner's form with a French navy blue satin
I
bullet
love
bra
the navy.
and a Spanish girdle
Yeah,
that's elastic
Spectacular.
with the side lacing. And then these are a selection of Vassarette, English Rose, I think, what was that one? The elliptic bra. This is a Spanish French kiss bra, so it's English, Spanish, American. So just nice to, and then that interesting bra form. So it's really hard to find the shop displays and the dead stock unworn garments. So whenever I travel, I always try to find pieces, souvenirs for my collection. So I went to Argentina for a lingerie show and to dance tango. So this is from Argentina with its original tags and some more French.
Wow.
That one's beautiful.
Yeah.
That.
The little cute bra and panty
Wow.
sets. And then the girdles, the rubber girdles with holes perforated through them so that so they're breathable as well. And then this collection here, I had the Life bra form display, and then I ended up finding this box, which is the same Life bra box that has falsies in it. And then I got a bag of bras donated to the museum, and inside this bag of broken bras that was worn by 3 generations of women, and they would save them for the parts, I found this Life bra in there. So it was like from 3 separate things, and just exciting to be able to bring them all together and have a collection of that.
Wow.
I love these daisy.
Yeah, the panty girdles and the dress boxes and lingerie boxes and our
Wow.
Hanes.
Yeah,
Hanes
there's a
70s man.
Gentleman
So,
undergarments.
yeah, and some of the original corset boxes. So in the shops, they would have had all the boxes lined up on the shelves. And these cabinets that everything's displayed in are original millinery cabinets from Vancouver. They were made by a Vancouver store fixture company. They belong to the SMOC, the Costume Society, but they didn't have the space to store them. So I'm lucky enough to store them for them. But they have the
Wow.
big deep drawers in the bottom as well. So all those big hats from about 1910 would have fit in the drawers, and then they could put the hats in there. So they're
Are these
wonderful
actual?
cabinets.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, and they're
Wow.
all faded and the silk shattering on them because they sat in a window, so they're all sun damaged and quite the characters on their own.
But
So
they're
this is
just so
an
beautiful
early
still.
brassiere. So that's the early form of the bra, and that's probably a 1920s girdle. So you can see it's very flattening on the bust and still bringing in. So if you didn't have that boyish figure, that would help to give that to you. This is probably one of the earliest corsets we have on display right now. So it's from the 1890s in a pretty
Wow.
blue floral cotton brocade. And then that's on a Dr. Warner's Health corset statue. I think this is a reproduction statue, but this one's an original one, and on the back it's patented in 1877. She didn't have her original corset, so I made a copy of an antique corset that I had found, and it was red with white embroidery, and it still had the same ruffly, fluffy trim on it, so I thought it's pretty spectacular.
Absolutely stunning.
And then the trade card is a copy of one of my trade cards that I blew up, and you can see the statues that would have been displayed in a shop to show off the wares, brass signs. Oops, that got moved from the Fluvog shoot, sorry about that. And then this is a golden goddess in her Frenchy zipperette. So it's a dead stock lingerie. This is one of the last mannequins that I bought in Paris at the flea market. And then when the salesmen were traveling from town to town, to carry full-size corset samples with the steel boning, they get very heavy. So they would have miniature samples that they could carry to show. So these are ranging, this is Spanish bustier, probably from the 40s or 50s, 30s girdle. And I do have the full-size version of this front lacing gossard corset with a demi-cup bra and circle stitching. So it's kind of fun to see the salesman sample and the full size and a little 20s corset, and that has wolf corset. So there was a wolf corset shot, WOOLF, stamped in the inside, and they even did miniature busks and miniature eyelets. Like the details are remarkable. Wow. And that's a salesman sample hat box. So they even like match the paper inside that would match the silk lining that would be in there. So everything is just scaled down, and a lot of people think that they're doll accessories, and that's how you finally find them, is because they become dolls.
Well, somebody in Edmonton had was a collector of salesman samples and had little mini jean jackets from all the workwear. Yeah. And at first you would think they're children's or they're something, but they're not, and had just this incredible collection of, this is stunning.
So to find the lingerie pieces. And then this is, these are reproduction cabinets, corset cabinets that I got the dimensions from at an auction. I was unfortunately outbid on them. And this is a French corset. It was made in France, but exported to the American market. So probably a bridal corset and a beautiful eyelet. And then even these flowers here have net behind them. Wow. The hook at the side of the busk is to put your petticoats under, so you didn't add bulk to your waistline. And it's got the beautiful silk moire brocade bow as well. So lots of fun, pretty things. And then
are you able to find lace for yourself? Do you find
we get donated a lot of antique lace, being Lace Embrace. People are like, they'll Google
you
lace.
Must want this.
And and then we get, I just got a huge box of lace 2 weeks ago. So so one of these days I need to upcycle all of the lace. And then this is an original shop corset display with its original corset on it. It's pretty rare to find
So is this silk? Would have been on the
so the ones beside you can see are better conditioned, and then it's sat in a window, and then they get moved up into the attics of old general stores, and then they get rained on because the roof's leaking and all these fun things happen to them, and mice and all that stuff. And then luckily someone realized the value of it and put it for sale. So
even in that condition, it's just a piece of art. I mean, it's just
a lot of people might think they're tattered, but when they're in the museum, they kind of look interesting. And then these are some more better condition corset forms.
I love the pictures in behind of
and those are Paris shop windows of the different, so you could see what the original shop windows look like. So we were trying to emulate that in this display. So this is an American corset from about 1910, probably a bridal corset. And American Beauty is an American brand, obviously. And then Nemo was known for their hip reducing corsets. But this is a Spanish corset that's on it. And then these here are probably to attach buckles for the garters. And then this is a beautiful French corset that is probably one of the newest 1910 corsets that I got in my collection. And it has irises woven into the fabric, which I really love that, because usually it's like, I guess you could tell if you're a floral person, but irises are just, so it's just a fun, pretty corset.
Really beautiful.
From Paris.
Oh my, look at these miniatures.
Some more little miniatures.
So this one.
How cute.
Yeah, the Venus is very beautiful. This is my very first miniature mannequin. I found her in Seattle. She cost a whole $25.
Wow.
And the woman in the shop was like, "Oh, she's so creepy." And I'm like, "I think she's beautiful."
Yeah.
And then you could buy miniature patterns, and then they have the miniature mannequins. So it was to teach young girls how to sew. So these dresses and lingerie pieces are things that I made. And they were really complicated because they're so itty bitty that I don't know how a child would even have the patience to learn how to sew. But the mannequins did come in a variety of sizes, so I had made that dress for her, and then realized it's too big, too small for her. So I sized up the lingerie set, and then this is a camp corset, famous for their fan lacing. So on the back side you can see all of the fan lacing. So it's a corset that you could put on by yourself and pull the straps to reduce your hip and bring
yes, I
your
see.
tummy. And camp is still in business today, making medical corsets.
Are these actual stockings on?
Yeah, pantyhose. Ivan gave that to me as a gift. So that's Hanes pantyhose, and Charisse is a door-to-door corsetier. So if you wanted to go, you could go to people's homes and you would fit them and measure them. So these are little salesman samples, so they can show the interior abdominal lacing of the Charisse corsets. And then you could pick your fabrics and they would measure you and custom make it for you. So
here's one last cabinet. What is
so many things. So
look at
and some more salesman samples.
Oh
So
my
quite exquisite with all the flossing. So those are earlier ones, and the original.
These are actually boned
stamps.
too, correct?
Yep, yep. And some of them actually have baleen in them.
What's baleen?
Baleen is the whale bone. So
Oh,
it's,
yes.
So a lot of baleen was very commonly used 18th, 17th century for corsets because it's fiber. It's made of keratin, so your hair and your nails, so you can split it into different thicknesses and different lengths because the baleen is in the roof of the baleen whale's mouth, so they use it to filter the plankton to eat, and they blow the excess water through their blowhole. So whale ships, they like the whale for the whale oil and for their baleen, and they use the baleen for umbrellas, for the stays in the umbrellas, for corsetry. And by 1880, the whales were getting fished to extinction. And I've read a bunch of horrible stories about the poor baleen whales. And hopefully, maybe you guys might get a chance to see some whales when you're here. But the whales are very friendly, curious creatures, and you could see them from the shoreline. So they would, in Europe, watch from the shoreline. They'd see a whale, they had a harpoon, and they would shoot the harpoon out into the water, and then the whale ships would go out, and then they would drag it back to shore. And then as the whale population, they had to go further and further north up to Greenland to fish different whales. There's not been a lot of research on whales, but there was a hatchet found in the skin of a recently washed up whale, and the hatchet had a patent date of like 1890 or 1880 in it, and that whale recently died. So they have really long lives, and they're like the dinosaurs of the sea. And so we
go to Puerto Vallarta, and I can sit on the beach reading my book, and then you'll see the mums and the babies, and they're breaching, and sort of, they'll sometimes put on a whole show in front of you, and you just think, how could somebody
so blessed, like it's just amazing.
So what is used now in
so they came up with a lot of alternatives. So they used quills from feathers, so there's feather boned corsets. Steel became the most popular option, so these are probably steel boned corsets. That one might be a baleen corset. They came up with they said horn, which they might have used. They used a lot of plant fibers. So the Dr. Warner's took a Mexican ixtal plant, and then they would put the straw grasses together and wrap them and use those as fiber. They used hemp cording. They were always patenting different things, but steel, because it's flexible, is the most common. So we order the steel for our corsets from a corset manufacturer in France, not a manufacturer, a steel mill, and they've been making corset bones since 1888.
Wow.
So they're still in business. So we had a big tour, and it's a cold rolled steel mill, so it was quite interesting to see that, and a little robot that like sorts all the bones and stuff. So it was fascinating and the steel in the 1880s was rusting, so perspiration, and then your bones could rust, and then they would snap, and they could puncture you, and you could get gangrene. So then there's the horror stories. So they came up with rust-proof steel bone steel boning around 1900, 1908, something like that. So you'll start to see rust. So if you see an antique corset, sometimes you'll see rust stains on it because of perspiration, and that's just from the natural wear of the corset, and that people think they're garbage because it's rusty, you know.
Right.
Or it's stored in the bottom of a trunk and then it gets rusty from that too. So
I love so much of the history when you're talking about the place in France that does the steel boning. You know, when you think about you know, antique umbrellas, or you know, back in the day, even as recent as the 70s and 80s, there were, you know, little shops you could take an umbrella and have it repaired
or recovered.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
lampshades and all kinds of things that were just part of our everyday, you know. Nobody has picked up that trade, and there's a few people that we see now on Instagram that are doing that. There's a young lady that does these beautiful lampshades, and but I would love to see all those trades come back.
Yeah,
to some
because it's
degree.
like reusing, and everything was very expensive. Labor was cheap, materials were expensive, so there was a treasure in that. And for me, growing, like when I started to set up my house, it was like I invested all my money in antique furniture because it lasts so much longer, and it doesn't make sense to have disposable things. So that's why vintage is so important, because you're creating your own style with your fashion and wearing a unique garment, and the quality, like the materials that they
French
used.
seams and old cashmere, and you know, just the fabric. Well, as you know, as we know, we're always talking about that. It's not wearing it once and getting it pilly and you know, that looks awful. You know, I mean, people used to mend stockings and hairnets and all kinds of things, and they just used it over and over and over again. Yep,
and it would be handed down. And even in the 18th century, there was a huge secondhand clothing market because the clothing was so expensive. And it's interesting that, you know, they changed their shift every day, which is the slip that they wore underneath. And that absorbed their body oils and their perspiration. So that got changed, but all of the outer garment was kept clean and preserved. So it blows me away when I look at all these 18th century stays. The linings are all clean and pristine, and maybe the outside has, you know, because it might have got used for theater or costume at some point, and they get a little soiled and dirty, but they were also their outer garments that they wore with their wool petticoats and everything like that. That was just your clothing, and you wore that every day. You didn't change your clothes. And everything we have is so elastic and moves with us. So people don't understand when they try on an antique garment that you can't move the same way as you can in yoga clothes.
Right.
So,
it's that. We always laugh because people will say, oh, but I want to be comfortable. And we'll say, well, you know, you don't need to have pajama level comfort every day when you're out in public. And also, if your clothes fit you properly, they should be comfortable. You know,
but even they had all the foundation garments. So they wore foundation garments right into the 50s, 60s. They still wore elastic panty girdles and things like that to give you that svelte form that was your comfortable elastic moving garment, and it made the outer garments hang nicely. Slips were so important because then you wouldn't have panty lines and bumps from your stockings showing through. A slip was just a nice way to finish off your outfit. And I remember I'd go to church with my great grandmother, and she'd freak out because I'd get to wear a dress and she'd be like, where's your slip? And she would tear through the house looking for slips, and she'd find me these 1950s nylon slips with crinolines attached, and I was like, oh, so excited, so I could be a ballerina underneath my dress and have this like nylon slip. And even nylon itself is such a practical fabric because it keeps you warm in the winter. You know, it's just that extra layer of warmth, and the pantyhose and the tights and the petty pants, and so underwear is such a huge part of dressing, and that's why these things get saved, and people think that they're really strange and they'll throw them out because they're like, ooh, it's underwear. But actually they were practical and they were warm, and that was how you could still be fashionable but have your foundation garments preserve your line of your costume but keep you insulated. So.
We were lucky enough to get a little bit of dead stock underwear from somebody. She had worked at Woodward's as her career. She's still alive. She's in her 90s, but there were little panties that were wool.
Yeah.
And they're a fine wool that's
Yeah.
not scratchy. You know, people
Mhm.
think, oh wow, wool underwear would be so uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
it's very, very milled fine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she had also the little sort of shorts, the bloomery ones, and then of course the stockings, and they all had the tags still on them. You know,
Yeah.
like wool and cotton stockings that were 20 cents. You know, and
Yeah. Yeah.
just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the Victorian times, they had quilted petticoats, they had flannel petticoats, shorter ones, so they always wore their shift and their bloomers, and then they would have a shorter flannel petticoat or a wool petticoat underneath, and then put longer petticoats over the top. I have a down petticoat.
Wow.
It's like heaven. I'm like, oh, I kind of want to make, like, just get a down blanket and make a down petticoat just to wear in the winter. Yeah, so they did have all kinds of interesting, and they had down-filled bustles as well.
Wow.
They were an English company that was manufacturing that, and Jagger Wool Company, which may or may not be in business today, but they advertised and promoted wool as healthy to be worn next to the skin. And in England also they had wool corsets. So the very first corset that I ever got is a scarlet red wool corset, English.
Wow.
With baleen and flossing and things like that. So
It's the dampness.
Yeah.
You need something warm.
yes.
So why don't you show us some of your favorite pieces? So Melanie has vintage pieces. She has all kinds of pieces in the store. So let's just see what
Yeah,
are
this
the...
is a fun piece that we just
Whoa.
got recently. It's a great
Ooh.
That
50s,
40s? Oh,
40s
okay.
print. I think this is a reproduction with a great fabric because it's got really wide seams. This came from a local costume rental company,
Oh,
and
okay, that
they've
makes
retired. So that is a really fun dress that we just got. And whenever I'm traveling, I always like to go and see. So it's a fun 70s nylon jersey dress. Yeah, there's
We love
lots
70s.
of different
Yes.
things. Oh, here for the Albertans.
Oh, I love that.
Little Western 50s top.
And do you guys, you have a website, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah, and we do have some of our vintage on our website. And then there's all the good. This came from Hawaii.
Oh, that's
Oh.
beautiful.
Yes, these are my, the border print skirts, which are
Love
always
those.
lovely and make a nice statement. And then, of course, we have a collection of beautiful lingerie and vintage Edwardian lingerie that didn't make the cut for our museum collection. So there's a variety of different things, including some bloomers as well.
Oh, I've
Fun.
got a pair of those.
So for those who have questions about how they went to the bathroom, that's how. So they wore the shift underneath, so that would fill in this, and then the bloomers would be worn over the top, and then however many petticoats, and of course you need your crinolines, nylon, and tulle crinolines to give you that nice silhouette.
I think I was reading, I think it was Margaret Atwood's Alias Grace book, and the character talks about her 6 layers or 7 layers of clothing that she puts on every single day, and that was the first time that I really, understood how, it was a lot of work.
No
and a
central
lot of-
heating, and
Yeah.
so
Really
this
ready
is
to keep
how,
warm.
yeah, you keep warm with
Absolutely.
all those fun layers. So, and then we have some more vintage. Oh, this is a really fun dress, the rooster print dress.
Oh, I love that.
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
I think Natasha is just, her
Probably
head is
like
exploding.
30s or
with that.
40s. I know they're fun, these dresses. And then we have some beautiful cheongsams or kepaos as well.
Oh, yes.
We just got
So-
2 cheongsams in the
Yeah.
store that are mink lined.
Whoa!
We've
Well,
actually
that would
also got a
keep you warm.
cheongsam slip on that side. as
Oh,
well.
yes.
wow.
Wonderful.
And actually, this is it's nice having a store because things that don't fit me anymore can come into the store. So this dress in particular is a very beautifully tailor-made dress. It might be hard to see because it's black. And this is my first vintage dress that I bought in Calgary. And it was too big on me when I bought it. And then there was a period where it fit me and it was like, I was poured into it. It was very Marilyn. Might fit me again, actually. COVID, I seem to have lost some weight. So,
Who says
it's very
that?
Yeah.
glamorous. Well, no, everyone
COVID.
gained weight, but then
Right.
we opened up again and then that weight got lost again. But this dress, I'm surprised it's still here, but it's very beautiful, very
It
glamorous
is.
dress. And then another glamorous dress here, which is
Oh,
very
that is
kind of Cruella
wow.
de Vil, 1940s.
That's my jam.
Such an
Wow.
exquisite dress.
That is
Yeah.
so beautiful. Is this
I'm
a
kind
silk?
of, yeah, we put it in
Oh.
Bazaar. It had its debut at the Bazaar sale, and I was like, if it doesn't sell, I might have to sneak it back. And then I guess I forgot. Yeah.
What is this puffy sleeve one
So-
here?
Which
Stripey.
one is that? This one?
Yeah.
This is from
Mhm.
New York.
Oh,
With its matching.
Oh
Coat.
goodness.
And I always love the labels.
Yeah, I also love
Aldernair, the Mrs. Shop. So yeah, they always have such
Wow.
interesting labels.
okay, that is just.
Yeah.
Why has somebody not bought
Right?
that?
I know, and I thought for film for sure that they
Wow.
And
would.
it's a super wearable size.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Petite.
So it's
Stunning.
such a great, but you never know. Like we get a lot of film people coming in this little sheer dress.
Oh,
I love these dresses.
Beautiful.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. They're fun.
That
That's
is
really
so
sweet.
Beautiful.
And with the belt, it's pretty rare to find dresses with the belt still attached.
yeah, they get separated.
Oh,
And
this
then,
dress is fun. With the nice
oh, stunning.
Oh,
shelf
wow.
bust.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
It's very glamorous. This was a New Year's Eve dress for me many years ago. Teeny tiny. So, oh, and I love watered rose. This is a new one.
Oh,
We've
wow.
had a few similar in this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, Vivian Westwood does a lot of this watered rose, and Klaus in his collection has a watered rose antique corset, and I could not believe it when I saw that. So anytime I find this watered rose silk fabric in the Paris or London fabric shops, I always have to buy it because I need those for myself.
Like, look
to
at the
make
shape of
corsets.
that.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
That is
bombshell.
Really
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a fabulous dress, and it's lined in a silk organdy as well. So just beautifully made dress. So yeah, so it's fun when we can find some nice treasures. Oh, this is like very glamorous with the
Very Marilyn.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
with the chiffon wrap. I think there was a green one too, unless it's sold. So
It might still be in there somewhere.
and then this I should probably say. I was driving back when I lived on Main Street in the 90s. I was driving down the
Wow.
street and saw this hanging outside of a vintage shop here on Main Street, not far from here. And I parked at home and ran back up and talked to the guy. And he's a chatter, hippie Chris, and he had a store crammed with stuff, and then he would just hang stuff out front of the store. And I shouldn't say this, anyhow. I think this dress cost me $4.
Oh.
So I
You
wore
should
this.
say that. We love that.
Wow,
exactly.
that's
Wow.
stunning.
So I wore this to Klaus's Broken Threads opening, and it was a very fun, beautiful dress. But we don't get to have dress-up occasions. Hopefully soon we will again. But I have so many other pretty dresses I need to wear. So hopefully that will find a home with somebody new. And yeah, so this is a fun 30s dress.
Oh, that's
Very
really sweet.
beautiful, cut at
That's
the back.
one decade that we just don't see in
Yeah.
Edmonton is
the
30s.
crepes and the little buttons on the sleeves, and this has been in my collection forever.
So we're gonna.
And I finally parted with it. So,
I'm gonna ask you if you have any advice. The one thing, especially in these crepes,
Yeah.
is the underarm smell. Is how
Yeah.
to, because that kind of fabric, it touches water and it kind of goes
Yeah.
and shrivels,
Yeah.
and the dry cleaners can't seem to. I've tried
I find
everything.
steaming it. So like I don't dry clean a lot of my dresses because
Yeah.
I find the dry cleaners are horrible with it.
Yes.
So I turn them inside out, cold water wash, delicate cycle.
Okay.
And I gently wash them, or you can hand wash them, and then I hang them up and I pull them a little bit because they do shrink up, and then I just steam them I put the steamer underneath, and then I steam it to help to get it back to its size.
Right.
And they seem to kind of go back to their original size. So yeah.
That's really lovely.
And this was one of the many dresses that came from a collection of a woman, so it was her whole closet ended up. So I've had this dress for over probably close to 30 years,
I call that periwinkle.
So
right?
yeah,
Yes.
it's just
Beautiful.
beautiful color, and yeah. So I was just going through the mending pile, saying okay, and we fixed them all up, and they make their way back into the store. So yeah, so we have quite a
She showed
selection.
the microplate one.
The microplate one. Which one's that one?
The
Carmen?
burgundy red one.
Oh, the one from New Mexico.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah, this one I just got in New Mexico,
Oh,
which is fun.
beautiful.
It's got the
this
wow.
yeah,
with the
yeah, the little.
good
So
choice.
it's very glamorous.
See that? That's so fabulous.
Cocktail dress, right? So
That
how
needs a
fun
new
is
party.
that?
Yeah.
It
wow.
does indeed. I was really happy to bring that back from New Mexico. That was the last place I traveled before COVID. And they're at the antique mall there. They didn't have clothing because the owner didn't want clothing in the mall. But they saw my rental car and they're like, "Are you from California?" I said, "No, I'm from Canada." And then they're very friendly and chatty. And they said, "Oh, Mary has all the vintage." Well, so Mary brought in all of her vintage underwear for me, which I bought
Oh.
tons of it. And then she said, "You collect clothing too?" So she brought in all of her vintage clothing too. So my suitcases were like
Wow.
cram packed with amazing, beautiful pieces.
And that looks like a good size too.
Yeah,
It's not, you
very
know,
wearable. So I actually turned down a lot of really tiny stuff because it's just people
Too
try
hard
it
to
on and they
Yes.
damage it. So if it's not going to fit somebody, then I try to find wearable
We
sizes.
recently bought a whole bunch of clothes from an estate, and the woman had been a ballerina at some point in her young life, and she sort of must have kept some of those eating habits and everything. And she had a 19-inch waist.
Oh
And,
wow.
you know, the clothes that she had altered to fit herself. Of
Yeah.
course, nobody fits those.
No.
Nobody.
Exactly. Yeah. And then she saves them because they have sentimental value to her,
Right.
but it's pretty rare. And it's nice when somebody comes into the store and they fit into that stuff, and then I see them posting on Instagram, and it just brings me so much happiness to see things getting enjoyed again and having a new life. And
Right.
yeah.
That's the number one thing, I think, for all of us in this business.
Yeah.
So we know Melanie has places to go, and we just feel so grateful that you met with us,
Yeah.
and we are going to be back over and over and over again. We definitely want to come to Bazaar
Yes.
in September.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And is there anything that's the holy grail for you that you're looking for, that if anybody is watching, that if they have in their
Antique
trunks?
corsets. I'm always all about antique corsets, lingerie, bustles, underwear, like that. I used to collect everything, and then Ivan said, "Why don't you just focus your collection and have the best of that?" So it's nice to be able to focus, and corsets take up less space than a Victorian dress.
Right.
A stomacher.
Yeah.
A stomacher is probably the only
a
missing
stomacher
one.
pockets, I don't have those. Yeah, there's always, but anything, especially Canadian, it's really hard to find Canadian provenance historical garments. So yeah, so maybe if someone has some antique clothing in their attic, as far as corsets and lingerie, definitely interested to hear.
And where can we find you online?
We are at Lace Embrace, LaceEmbrace.com, and we also have antiquecorset.com as well, which has some of our museum collection there too. And then you can stay tuned to see if we have any upcoming stuff. We are doing an open house here in the store, fashion shows. Things are starting to open up, so there'll be a lot of new things.
We'll post to her Instagram and places like that. We'll make sure that we've got links to all of her places, and so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
been
much.
really
Really an
wonderful.
honor to have you guys and show you around our little nook and crannies here.
Thank you. It's great. So we're going to ask Carmen too. We're going to let Melanie go, and then we're going to shop a little bit and look at some corsets. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna try corsets on. Yeah, so this one is an Edwardian corset that we've had trimmed with some nice black lace. So I'm gonna try this one on you, and we'll see how you like that style.
I'm going to see maybe take your scarf off.
Oh, right. I
Yeah.
suppose I should take my scarf off so you don't get it trapped in there. Okay.
All right, so let's have a look here. So I'm just gonna loosen this one up at the back here.
Oh, I don't
And
want-
this one's made in house, right?
This one's made in house. This
Yeah.
is one of our classic corsets that we've embellished a little bit. So any of our classic styles, we can add lots of fun details to, like lace, flossing, embroidery. We can add things like leather tips to give it a little bit more reinforcement. We can add, we can like take out zippers. We can replace the regular bust with zippers. We can rhinestone it.
Cool.
All kinds of fun options.
So what if one was single and
Well, it's completely possible to do it up yourself. Most people historically didn't have someone to put their
dressers, right?
historical equivalent of a bra on. So, especially if you're a working woman. So most women would do up their own corsets unless, you know, their sister or whoever was available to put it on for them. But yeah.
I think once
the
you
way-
probably have been shown once, then you'll.
Yeah, once you actually get the process down, it's fairly easy. If you continue a little bit this way. So basically, I'm going to pull this in a little bit, and then I'm going to do what's called the tummy pull. Now, the tummy pull just kind of rearranges things to where it needs to be, so that when you tighten everything, it goes up and in rather than down and out, because the point of the corset is not to make a tummy, it's to pull the tummy in.
Right.
All right, so if you can turn this way, yeah, perfect. All right, so I'm going to reach down the front of the corset to where the tummy is, and then I'm going to scoop up.
Oh.
All right, so usually when you're doing this on yourself, you would grab the bottom of the corset and grab with the other hand. So, pardon my reach here. So, like so, you just pull that up like so.
It doesn't
Just
help
scoop-
that I have to
scoop
pee.
the jelly. All right, so if you turn this way, basically you start at the bottom
like
here at what's called the outer X's, so the ones that sit on the outside. I'll kind of give you a view there. So these ones that sit at the top, those ones are the ones you make your adjustments from. So you kind of pull on that, on the bottom of those ones to pull everything in. And then, like so, every single one of these you pull like so. And then you would go at the top, and ordinarily you would pull on every single one of these, but the one on the top doesn't give you anything, so I'm going to skip one down here, go to the third hole down, and pull in like so. And the next one down
Wow.
here, like so. Are you still comfortable?
Yes.
Good. I would say you're probably actually a size down from this, because you're the lacing gap is quite small. On a new corset, you typically want to see about a 4 to 5 inch gap in the back. You're at about 2 inches right now, so you can actually go a size down from here. So once you get it to that point, you can tie that off either in a basic bow if you're wearing it over clothes. Modern times, people do wear their corsets over clothing. But if you're wearing it under your clothing, you can do what's called the corsetier's knot. So you would do 3 loops in the back here.
It's really beautiful. It just looks so fantastic.
So pull smooth. That way there's no hard knots digging into your back. And then you would turn this way. So you would take this lace here. You would tuck this into the front busk there. And you would tuck that away.
Oh, that's
And
really
you would do
great.
the same on the other one. Just like so. And then you would tuck it away.
Oh, wow. Well, you're still smiling, so it's all good. I mean, the shape is just
The nice thing about the Edwardian is it has a very
Beautiful.
sort of classic hip shape. It's very flattering, kind of smooths everything nice over the hips. So
wow, that is gorgeous.
a lot of people come in for like a basic cincher. They just want to pull the tummy in kind of thing, and then you show them the Edwardian, and it's like, oh no, I also want nice hips.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, I love that.
All right, corset number 2.
So this one is our Juliet overbust corset in the lovely jade green.
What a beautiful color.
This one is extremely popular for Halloween. Every year we have a poison ivy somewhere in the shop, and as a result we don't have a lot of the jade green ones left, but yeah, they are beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Beautiful one.
So if somebody was to come in, you would first do their measurement?
Yeah.
correct? And then
So yeah, we measure their natural waist size, and then we typically go about 6 inches down from that for their corset size. Depending on the person, you might have more of what we term in the industry squish. So some people corset down more than others, but yeah, the typical is about 6 inches down from your natural waist size.
so what would be the difference, or is there a difference with now there's the trend of waist trainer? So is that if you wear a corset all the time, is your waist going to
Yes,
stay in?
you'll find with bodies are very moldable. The more you wear a corset, the more you'll find that your body actually retains that shape. Now the difference between a corset and what you call waspies or waist trainers, typically these days those ones are made out of mesh, so they don't have quite the same structure as your classic corset will. So they don't help you keep the shape as much. They don't have as much structure. So typically when you take one of those off, your body just kind of returns to normal. Whereas a corset, because it has the boning and it has the sturdier materials, your body will actually get used to taking that shape more so than you know, an unboned or lighter boned mesh waist trainer will. Usually you'll find if you're frequently wearing corsets, over time the lacing gap in the back, you can physically start to see that go smaller the more that you wear the corset. So sometimes you'll find that you start off with a certain size of corset, and then the lacing gap just closes the back. With our corsets, if that happens, we can actually take that in so that, that you can keep wearing your corset. We like for people to be able to keep wearing their corsets. So.
This green is just spectacular.
I know. I just see like a peek of it in the mirror, and it's really beautiful.
The difference with this Juliet, with it having a shorter waist, we don't necessarily need to do the tummy pull, but it is sometimes nice. Yeah, I would say this is definitely a good size for you.
You know, we see in the movies where the person puts their foot on their back.
Oh no. there's no need for any feet to go anywhere near nice silk corsets. It's very much an old trope for sure.
For Scarlett O'Hara.
Yeah.
To me, that's the scene where her
bedpost.
Yes.
No, if you're doing the corset up properly, you don't need to be
so aggressive.
Yeah, for sure.
But is there some truth to the fainting and the...
Not so much. I mean, typically when you hear stories of, you know, fainting women in the Edwardian period, you have to take that with a bit of a grain of salt, because a lot of women had tuberculosis and every woman was wearing a corset. So you'd get a lot of doctors, and I use the quote loosely because, you know, medical science wasn't quite the same as what it is these days. Trying to find different scapegoats for, you know, hysterical women fainting and passing out. And it's like, okay, well, if it's not high heels, it's the corset. If it's not the corset, it's women taking trains or riding bicycles.
Getting the vapors.
Getting the vapors. But if you were to tight link the corset, that might contribute to it a little bit. But you also have to keep in mind that, you know, there's a lot of journalists that were, you know, drawing political cartoons of women with ridiculous, you know, older women tight lacing to within an inch of their life kind of thing. There was a lot of sexism involved in that, unfortunately. But yeah, it's not as much to do with the corset as
who was writing this story. Yes.
But
that is amazing. Look at this.
It's a very good shape on you. It's a very, it cups the bust very nicely, and with that nice short shape, it looks very good with skirts and dresses.
Absolutely.
This is so beautiful, and it feels
stunning.
It feels really nice on.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Now we always say a nice fitting corset should fit like a hug rather than a vice grip.
I feel like I am being hugged.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, this is really beautiful. Yeah, and it feels just like very
Nice.
luxurious.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Wow.